Defense Secretary Lloyd testified alongside General Mark Milley before the House Armed Services Committee, calling the Afghan withdrawal a strategic failure, warning the Taliban remains a terrorist organization and maintains ties with al-Qaeda. The White House has maintained that no military leaders advised President Biden to leave a small military presence behind, a claim that has now been contradicted by several officials. Let's dive in with Bill Roggio, senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Bill, good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Buck. Great to see you.
Let's just start with, what about this contradiction point? This got a lot of focus. What did Biden say? What are the generals saying? Why does it matter?
Yeah, President Biden indicated in, I believe it was mid-August, that none of his generals stated that they advised him to not pull out of Afghanistan. And what we've seen over the last 2 days is that the Secretary of Defense and even though they won't say what they advised them, what they're doing is they're sort of hiding behind this. My personal opinion is we should have kept troops in, and you could extrapolate from that what my advice would be to the president. That's what Generals Milley and General McKenzie have said, and so they're coming out and saying, I think this is a little bit of a CYA because of the disaster that the world has witnessed in Afghanistan, that now they're coming out and contradicting their commander in chief and saying they actually had advised him to not withdraw from Afghanistan and that the country would fall. I'm not really sure who I believe in all this. I'll be honest with you, Buck. These generals have lied to us over the course of the summer. They were telling us everything was fine. They were telling us the Afghan government could withstand the Taliban's assault, that the Afghan military was capable. I'm just really not very sure who I should believe in this situation, but it doesn't reflect well on anyone involved in this entire situation.
Secretary of Defense Austin said this about I guess we'd have to say the massive surprise to our entire national security apparatus that the Afghan security forces would evaporate in a matter of days. Here's what he said about how, we just didn't really see this stuff coming.
We need to consider some uncomfortable truths. That we did not fully comprehend the depth of corruption and poor leadership in their senior ranks. That we did not grasp the damaging effect of frequent and unexplained rotations by President Ghani of his commanders.
You buy that?
Oh, well, it's funny. When he says he doesn't understand the depth of corruption in the senior leadership, I was thinking of the U.S. military here, frankly. But, I think they did understand. The SIGAR report, the Special Investigator General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, has been very clear over the years for the weaknesses that exist in the Afghan military. Generals Milley and Generals McKenzie and General Miller and the Secretary of Defense Austin, they were all aware of this. Again, I think what they're trying to do here is hide the intelligence failure that existed, that I don't believe they understood what was happening while it was happening and what was going on beforehand. Again, they lied to us all summer. They told us that the Taliban would have a year or two before they could take over the Afghan government, before the Afghan government would be in trouble. This entire failure makes them look horrible. So what they're doing now is they're basically throwing the Afghans under the bus. These problems with the Afghan government, with the Afghan military, were well known by anyone who remotely paid attention in Afghanistan. And by the way, it didn't collapse in days. It collapsed. That final Taliban offensive, which really was the closing act in all this, began on May 1st. And we were warning them. Buck, I've been on your show how many times over the summer we were talking about this offensive. We all saw this coming, and they were telling us that everything was fine. And this is, so again, I think we have a lot of CYA going on here with Secretary Austin and with the generals.
With regard to CYA, there is now also a line coming out from some of the generals as they're being grilled on Capitol Hill by the House Armed Services Committee that they had to they had to let go of Bagram because otherwise they would have had to fight more or something. Do you see this today? Essentially, oh no, letting go of Bagram wasn't some huge strategic blunder. It was a necessary thing, and we did the right move. Did that surprise you at all? Does that make any sense to you?
It doesn't make sense. I mean, what they're saying is that since they were ordered to go down to zero, the only troops they could keep in country were at the Kabul International or at Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul, as well as troops at the embassy. So it makes some kind of bizarre sense. But, they were saying that you needed 5,000 troops to secure Bagram. Well, the reality is we had 2,500 troops in country when the withdrawal was announced, anywhere between 25 and 3,500 troops. And we were securing Hamid Karzai, we were securing the embassy, and we were securing Bagram and several other bases that exist there as well. Again, this is all part of, there's a whole bunch of doublespeak here, but the reality is the order was given to go to zero. And they said, well, if we go to zero troop presence, we have to get Bagram. That's the only thing that makes sense there. You had to get rid of Bagram because you were going to have zero troops in Afghanistan, not because we couldn't defend Bagram and Kabul. Yeah, with the right amount of troops, you could have kept both the bases open, but the administration wanted the number of troops at zero, except for the defense of the embassy and at the airport in Kabul.
Switching gears for a second to the Taliban itself, what have we seen since they've taken charge? We had all this, well, will they be as bad as they were before? And what kind of a state will they be running? I mean, they are now the government of that country. Do we have a good sense of it, or are we still in the wait and see mode?
No, I don't think we need to wait and see anything. The Taliban 2.0 is Taliban 1.0, oppressive, brutal regime. It's rounding up its enemies and hanging them from the public square, chopping off people's hands for theft. It's shut down the girls' schools. One of the most telling things that it did, it shut down the women's ministry, Ministry of Women. And what it did was it converted it into the Ministry for the propagation of virtue and prevention of vice, that's the Taliban's, goon squad that goes out there and enforces its harsh brand of Sharia. I think I don't think that was an accident they chose the women's ministry to convert it to the virtue and vice ministry. That's a message not to all Afghans that the old Taliban is back, that we are going to enforce the rules that we want. And the Taliban's leadership, by the way, nearly every one of them are old school Taliban leaders. They literally served in the Afghan government from 1996 to 2001, nearly everyone. And only the new heads are still old heads. They've been involved in the jihad for 20 years. It's the son of Mullah Omar. It's Sirajuddin Haqqani, the son of his father, Jalaluddin, was a key senior Taliban leader during the old Taliban government. And yeah, it's meet the new boss, same as the old boss. No one should have, people fooled themselves in thinking that the Taliban would moderate and do things that the international community wanted. The Taliban is the victor, and to the victor go the spoils, and their spoils is to get what they wanted, and that was the return of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan.
What about the Americans that we've been told at least, may have been left behind? Do we know, are there still U.S. citizens who are stuck behind Taliban lines, so to speak? It feels like that story is just falling off the front page of the newspaper.
Yeah, this is really criminal in my opinion. Look, the administration said about 100 Americans were trapped behind the Taliban lines. Well, since the withdrawal, about 100 have been out, and there's still more Americans there. And not just Americans, there's green card holders, family members. Look, I was told that at least over 1,000 Americans were in Afghanistan when the U.S. left on August 31st. I think what we're seeing now is that number may actually be correct, because I'm hearing there is still a large number of Americans who want to leave the country and can't. It is shocking that the press has essentially ditched this issue, particularly with the anger of senators and congressmen. I mean, this has been a common theme in the hearings at both the House and the Senate of the last 2 days of how these politicians are really upset that their constituents are trapped behind enemy lines, and yet no one really here in the American press seems all that interested in this.
Look, I just hope that people realize the Biden administration is not going to be held to account, and unless people pay attention and see what's going on here. And also, we got to get Americans out of there. Good to see you as always, Bill. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Buck. Have a great day.
Cops in the Big Apple, NYC, being threatened with demotion if they don't get the COVID-19 jab. Not exactly the kind of thing we need in the midst of a nationwide spike in murders either. When we come back, former member of the NYPD and conservative commentator John Cardillo gives his thoughts. Let's talk about the most important asset you own, your home. How much equity do you have? 50,000, 100,000, more? Cybercrime experts are alerting homeowners the more equity you have, the greater the chance foreign and domestic criminals will come after you. Home title theft is one of the fastest growing crimes. In fact, Home Title Lock, America's leader in home title protection, is alerting homeowners they could already be a victim and not know it. Here's how it goes down. Cyber thieves search hundreds of public databases for high equity homes. Then they pull your home's online title, they forge your signature stating you sold your home, and they take out loans using your equity. You're not covered by insurance, your bank, or common identity theft programs. Protect your most valuable asset. Register your address now to see if you're already a victim, and receive a complete title history of your home, a $100 value free. Go to HomeTitleLock.com. Again, that's HomeTitleLock.com. John Cardillo, up next.